Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Kachua Online School, Bagerhat. I am grateful firstly the Almighty Allah. Dear students, I wish you a good day, good health and the bless of Almighty Allah. Before starting today's topic, I want to introduce with you firstly here. This is Md.Khairul Bashar Rusel, Assistant English Teacher of Govt CS Pilot Model High School, Kachua Bagerhat. I am fine by the grace of Almighty Allah. I want to discuss with you about all of important topics. This topic is actually a kind of perspective, a kind of point of view by which sentence is divided into. Even this topic has already been introduced in your previous academic years. Dear students, can you imagine which type of topic is going to be discussed today? Actually, our today's selected discussion topic is voice. Thank you very much, both of you who have already become success to find out about today's topic and who have tried to find out about today's topic. Dear students, now let's go to start through various types of slides about our today's topic. Here, about voice, we find that voice is a kind of perspective of sentence categorization. That means, depending on voice, we can divide sentence from various types. Actually, from this point of view, sentence is divided into. Now, it is time how many kind sentence is divided depending on this topic voice. Depending on voice, actually sentence is divided into two types. One is active sentence and another is passive sentence. In case of active sentence, here we find that it's a kind of subject dependable sentence where subject is directly related to complete the action of the verb. Dear students, when you find that the subject directly complete the action of the verb, this type of sentence is called active sentence. That means this type of sentences main focus is who have completed, that means who has completed the action. Here the subject is always placed before the action, before the verb of the sentence. So this type of sentence is also called as subject dependable sentence. Again, in case of passive sentence, we find that it's a kind of object dependable sentence. Unlike active sentence, where we found that it's a kind of subject dependable sentence, and in passive sentence it's a kind of object dependable sentence. That means its main focus is which type of work has been completed. Who has completed the action is not the main focus of this type of sentence. So the object is always placed before the verb, before the action of the sentence. So this type of sentence is called as passive sentence. This type of sentence is called object dependable sentence. Dear students, I think you are clear about active sentence, about passive sentence. In brief, I want to give an example. Suppose in passive sentence, here the road has been broken. So the main concentration, main focus here is which type of action has been completed. Who has completed the action is not the main concentration of this type of sentence. So the main concentration in object, and it is called object dependable sentence. And in active sentence, suppose we find that Mohidul writes a letter. Here, who writes the letter? Mohidul writes a letter. Here, main concentration in subject, main concentration who has completed the action. Here, Mohidul completed the action, and the action is directly completed by Mohidul. So this type of sentence is called active sentence, called subject dependable sentence. Okay, dear students, now let's go to another slide where we find that making passive sentence. That means in our language we use various type of active sentence. That means we use a lot of active sentence. Now we will try to make the sentence into passive, changing sentence from active to passive. Now to change the sentence from active to passive, we have to follow some important steps. In first step, we find place object in the subjective area. That means from your given sentence, from your given active sentence, you have to find out the object of this sentence, and it must be placed in subjective area, because your active passive sentence is a kind of object dependable sentence, and because of being an object dependable sentence, you have to place object in subjective area. Now it is time for using certain auxiliary verb in various tenses. Depending tenses, you have to use various type of auxiliary verbs in certain place. You know, the auxiliary verb of active sentence is certain, and the auxiliary verb of passive sentence is certain, and depending on tense, you have to use the certain auxiliary verb in certain place. Now in step 3, we find that make passive, make past participle form of main verb. To make a sentence into passive, to change the sentence into passive form, you have to find out the main verb of active sentence, and this active sentence must be changed into past participle form to make the sentence as passive voice. Now it is using preposition, by, to, and so on. Usually we have to use a preposition before the object of passive sentence. Usually we use by as the preposition. Now it is time for place subject in the objective area. Dear students, there is a close relationship between the first step and this last step. In first step, you have already chosen the object of the active sentence, and it has already been placed in the subjective area. Now you have to choose the subject, and it must be placed in objective area. Now here it's the chart of auxiliary verb for passive sentence. The certain auxiliary verb here, depending on various type of tenses. Here in column we find that the name of various type of tense, and here is the happening period of the tenses. For indefinite tense, if the happening period is present, we will use am is a. For past, we will use was were, and for future, we will use shall be, will be. But if you give your concentration fully, you will find that the same auxiliary verb of indefinite tense have used here in continuous tense, and only being is used, only being is added here for every auxiliary verb of indefinite tense. So for making auxiliary verb of continuous tense, we will use the same auxiliary verb of indefinite tense, only a being will be used. In the same way, we find that in perfect tense, here the auxiliary verb and the same auxiliary verb also be placed here in perfect continuous tense, only a being must be added in the case of perfect continuous tense. Dear students, I think it is easy and clear method to you. We have to use this type of certain auxiliary verb in certain place for making passive sentence. Now here it is time for changing into passive voice. That means from our given active sentence, we will try to change the passive sentence or passive form. For this reason, we have to need a active sentence. Here to make active sentence, we find that various type of parts of a sentence. Here subject, auxiliary verb, verb and object. Depending on these various parts, we will try to make an active sentence. Here the active sentence's subject area is my brother. For verb, here writes, and in objective area we find here short story. Now the active sentence is completed. Here we find the active sentence, my brother writes short story. Now we will try to change it into passive sentence. Before that, we find here that there is no auxiliary verb, because in case of present indefinite tense, in case of past indefinite tense, for active sentence, the auxiliary verb is not needed. Dear students, here is the present indefinite tense, and we have to change the sentence. We have to use the auxiliary verb depending on this tense active from the active sentence. Now, to change the sentence into passive, firstly we have to find out the subject, find out the object, and it must be picked up and it will be placed in alternative way. That means firstly we will pick up the object and it placed in a subjective area. In same way we will pick up the subject and it will be placed in objective area. So the first two steps have already been completed. Now it is time for changing verb. That means in case of passive sentence, we know in passive sentence the verb must be changed into past participle form. Here write is the main verb and it must be changed into written. Then it's the past participle form of write. Dear students, now the auxiliary verb must be used. Here in active sentence, we know the active sentence is present indefinite tense. In case of passive sentence, the auxiliary verb of passive sentence is. So the auxiliary verb here is placed, but one step is still not completed. Here we have to use a preposition before the object of passive sentence. Here the by placed here as the preposition. Now our sentence of passive voice is completed here. Here the sentence short story is written by my brother, where in active sentence the sentence was my brother writes short story. Dear students, it has been happened in case of present indefinite tense. If the sentence the tense of the sentence is to be changed, what will be happen? Is it the difficult task? Obviously it is not a difficult task. You have easily do these things. Here, depending on the previous subject, previous object, we try to change the sentence from the another tenses. Here my brother the previous subject and is as the auxiliary verb of present continuous tense, and the verb, because of being continuous, I will use write with ing, writing, and for object we use the previous object here. So now the present continuous tense of the previous sentence has been happened here. My brother is writing short story. It's a continuous tense of active sentence. Now, depending on this present continuous tense, we try to change it into passive sentence, as the subject, the object is same as before tense. So the same object and the same subject will be placed, and now it is time for only change the auxiliary verb. Here in case of present continuous tense, the auxiliary verb must be is being. So the passive sentence here, short story is being written by my brother. Dear students, I think all those things are very much clear, very much easy to you. Only you have to concentration on picking up, on find out subject, object. You have to choose the subject, you have to choose the object, and it will be picked up and placed in alternative way, and you have to use the past participle form of the verb of given sentence. In this way you can easily make the sentence into passive. Only you have to give your concentration on the auxiliary verb. Depending on tense, you have to use the certain auxiliary verb in certain place. Yes.